Okay, so Kalkadosh, we're continuing with Sif Lamed Aleph. V'chen isha she'ofa pat be'erev Shabbat mi'isa sheyesh ba shiur chala. So if you remember, yesterday's shiur was basically about the concept that they're allowed to come and do the Hafrashat Halla and then split it up to different pieces, and they have what to rely on, even they're going to make a Beracha. Today is the same concept, which is basically, I think now you could unmute yourselves. I just changed the things. So Yitzchak Amram, if you want, I think now you could unmute yourself. Yeah, okay, perfect. So it says a woman could also bake bread on Erev Shabbat from an Isa sheyesh ba shiur chala, and then afterwards she's also dividing it between Banea Nesuim, Chatanea, also chayevet b'Hafrashat Halla Beracha. So obviously this, we're gonna have to see if this is talking about in the dough or not. Because if you guys remember, you remember Yitzchak, we said last night about that if it was in the bread, then for sure there's no problem. We're talking about in the dough. So let's see what he's talking about exactly over here. So here basically the mother is dividing it between a whole bunch of people, whether it's her daughters, but it's family obviously. So now they're allowed to make the beracha. So let's see. That which we just explained in the he'ara above. Obviously his father. I was asked. A woman's coming and she's baking bread on Erev Shabbat from an Isa that does have a shiur of chala. Okay? And then afterwards she gives out the breads to her married children. So basically the grandmother, right, or it's the mother here, but basically the mother is dividing in between her married children. Okay? Or can she make the beracha or not? So we learned yesterday, a baker, that he's doing the isa to divide it. So it's chayevet bechala, because if he doesn't sell it, so he's going to make it all into one bread. But if a person's doing the isa lechalka b'batzek p'tura, and the shach says, aval yimen dato lechalka kashi batzek, afal pi shedato lechalka charafiyah chayevet. So again, this was the shach. The shach said, if you're going to divide it after it's already bread, for sure you're going to be chayav in chala. It's only if you're dividing it when it's still in the dough, then you're not going to be chayav. So it comes out that you're going to be chayav. So the Rashba brings down in the Halachot of Chala, Isa shebeshutafut Yisrael, right? When you have a dough that you have b'shutafut Yisrael kedei le'efota b'shutafut, that they're coming, they're baking it with shutafut. Kol sheyesh bechol ha'isa keshiur chayevet. As long as you have the entire isa as a shiur, it's going to be chayav. Af al pi she'en lechol echad ele kazait, even though you only have a kazait. Uchdita betosefta, just like it's brought down in the tosefta. Ve'osifa bet Yosef sham, nireh midvarav. So it appears from the words of the Rashba, shekol she'en dato lechalka bebatzek, the same yisod like the shach. That as long as you don't want to divide it when it's batzek, even though you're going to divide it afterwards when it's already fully baked, chayevet, you're going to be chayevet in chala, right? And this is like what you guys mentioned last night. Many times it happens. You're invited out and you already did the bread or whatever it is, and now you come on, I'm going to bring you the bread. And, you start doing all these things. And it's permitted. And you did a Hafrashat Halla, there's no problem. Aval midivrei samag, but says the Bet Yosef, from the words of the samag, right? It comes out that you're not supposed to have in mind at all, even after afiyah, to divide it. But maybe it was just stam. It was like lav dafka. They just stam, they brought it like that. But really, be'emet, you don't really need to say that. Upashut. He says, but that's only if you want to divide it and give it to other people. But for sure, for a balabait himself, that means ourselves, and we're doing it, and we are dividing it for just ourselves. The only reason why we're just doing, instead of one huge challah, we're doing different breads for lechem mishneh, obviously. So it's for sure it's going to be chayav challah. L'chen ketav hashach, u'bibiru agra, b'mamarat agazi al Hilchot challah l'Ramban, sheken ketav ari kurkus, Rabbi David Arama, chen b'shut tzemach tzedek Lubavitch. Okay? So until here, it's clear, yeah? So basically, one more time. As long as for sure, if it's for yourself, There's no questions asked. And that's why we said above, even though he said Yeshlam Ali Smoch, that's what we're going by. However, though, to give it out to the other people, we said if it's going to be batzek, you don't do it. If it's going to be challah, you do it. Even though we're going to see now. והנה מוכח, שאפילו אם כשנעשית בצק, חלחם לך כמה כיכרו בפעם. So it's mashma from here that even if it was during the batzek period, the dough period, you came and you divided it into different breads and you baked it. And you want to change it, divide it afterwards. Just like he said to shutufim. חייב בחלה. ובשו"ת מנחת יצחק חלק י' לוי בשם שו"ת ארץ צבי, שכתב, מסופקני, I have a doubt, לפי מה דקיימלן, שעושה יישא מנה לחלקה בצק פתורה. אם כן, איך הדין ממנו שיוסף בצק, על מנה לחלקו אחר כך? So this is a question that they were asking. For example, a balabait שהופך חלות לבנו, balabait that he's baking breads for his son, שאינו סמוך על שולחנו, that's not eating from him, הדר באותה עיר, that lives in the same city. Because obviously, if he's eating from him, meaning he's the one that's been farnesoto, there's much more room to be lenient. But here we're talking about even if he's not eating from you, he supports himself. Just some, you're giving them your chalot. The wife, la meskina, she still doesn't know how to do chalot properly. So what happens? The mother is giving chalot to the children. Is that okay or not okay? So it says, uvechol chala en keshiur. Obviously, every chala in itself does not have the shiur of Hafrashat Halla. Ubeota batzek. Now, when it's still a batzek, you want to divide it between the people. But you only want to give it out to distribute it after it's baked. So this is going to be mefurash in the tur and the rama. That even one person, that even if you're doing one person, that he's doing it to divide it between people, it's petura. And the Bet Yosef says, that's even going to be to your family members. ונראה שכל שמחלק העיסה בהיותה בצק, אלא שלא ייתן לאחרים אלא אחר כך, גם זה חשוב לדעת לחלק פתורה. So this shoot mitzchat yitzchak, right, in the name of that it's tzvi that he's saying, right, that it's going to be that I'm not sure, he comes and he says, maybe this is going to be a problem. Because since during the process of how do you call it? Since during the process of the batzek, you already want to come and divide it, so you're not going to make a beracha. ולפי זה צריך עיון. על מה סומכים העולם, שולפים חלות כשיעור, ושולחים אחר כך חלות לצאצאיהם בכל שבוע. So this is mamash a question that they asked. How do they rely on this? At the end of the day, they're sending it out. During the time of the batzek, they have the thought process to divide it. Kamarnu, you can't do a beracha. They're already during the time of the batzek, they're having this in mind. ואיך מברכים על הפרשת חלה? How do you make a ברכה? כיוון שבשעת גלגול הבצק, אבל ידע לחלק, יש להזהיר על זה, שיפרישו חלה בלא ברכה. Tell them. Start telling everybody. הפרשת חלה ולא ברכה. So he says no. ובאמת, זה לא קשה מדי. ילקוט יוסף wants to argue on the מנחת יצחק, and he says it's not a question. Why? שהרי גם השותפים בשעת גלגול הבצק, אבל ידעתם לחלקו אחר אפייה. The shutfim themselves, the partners themselves, had the same mindset. And they also wanted to do the same thing. They didn't require them to eat it together. But it's incorrect. As long as you're not dividing it when it's a batzek, even though you had the mind to do it during the time that it's batzek. I mean, you're doing it afterwards, not like that it's savi. Yeah? Okay, so it says, you guys can unmute yourself, yes or not? You still can't unmute yourself. I apologize. Sorry. I don't understand why it's not. Here it is. Okay, now you can unmute yourself. Sorry.
Okay.
But I don't understand. The premise of this whole thing about not having a bracha and a hafrasha, when is that to be cholek, is it mishum que hay un chashash que no vas a tener shiur que de hafrasha? Is that the basis of this whole problem?
Yeah, basically there's no shiur for Hafrashat Halla. For you to take off Hafrashat Halla, you need a shiur. But if I divide them, so they don't combine anymore. So they don't combine anymore on every chala in itself. I don't have the shiur of Hafrashat Halla.
So the example that Isaac was using last night, that we do this all the time, that, that you're coming to me for Shabbat, and Lisa tells your wife, you know what, don't make bread, come over, I'll give you some. So that's technically an issue, right? You have
So
that
that was the Eretz Tzvi. Because, no, sorry. That wasn't even the Eretz Tzvi. What you're talking about is already after I made it. If I already made it, then according to everybody, it's okay. Because when I made it, I had no intention to give it to your wife or to anybody else. Here, where the safek of that Eretz was, during the time that it's batzek, I already know I'm going to your house. So you invited me. I say, you know what? I already have the dough done. I'm going to do a Hafrashat Halla. Don't make chalot. I'm going to make you chalot. So now, during the time of the batzek, I already know I'm giving it to you. There's two different cases. The case of Yitzchak, your case was the other one, no? That you already...
but even this one...
No, my case is where I tell you. What Ronnie
is
saying. My case yesterday is where I say before, and I say, listen, I'm going to make bread, so don't worry about it. Don't make, because I'm going to make and I'm going to give you.
Okay, so then that's the Eretz Tzvi case. So
right, that's the one I'm talking about.
Is again, one more time, the Eretz Tzvi case is that during the time that you're making the batzek, you already know you're going to divide it, but you're not dividing it now. You're dividing it after bake. But the fact that during the batzek period, I already know I'm dividing it, according to the Tzvi, you don't do beracha.
But that's even if the halukot that you're doing still retain kedei leafrish, shiur kedei leafrish.
No. If it had kedei leafrish, then you would make a beracha. But it's impossible. One challah has 1.6 kilos. Blind enough, what type of a challah you're going to make there?
Actually,
no, I lose you with those measurements. What did you just say?
Ronnie, I'll explain, because my question is based on a little bit what you're saying, which is the question that I've been having. To understand what we're talking about, Ronnie, is that for example, it takes about this amount of bread to do a Hafrashat Halla. So if I do this, I mean, you can't see me with the camera. So if I do like much bigger, double that amount, and I divide it in half, and both of us have enough of Hafrashat Halla, it's not a big deal. Because the whole point here that they're talking about is if I take out a piece of the challah and I give it to you, so then ni tú and ni yo have enough for that challah. So when I'm going to do the Hafrashat Halla, no sirve, because I'm doing it on something that's patur. So I should do it, I just don't say a blessing. So I do the Hafrashat, I just don't do it, I do it without a blessing. That's the case that they're talking about. So when I have the measurement, but since I'm not going to keep it because I'm going to divide it, therefore, it's not called the Hafrashat Halla according to the law because I don't have the measurement, because I'm dividing it.
Okay, but the very first halacha that we learned here, we were going through the measurements. And the question is, since we're doing halacha lema'aseh, the question is, are those measurements reflective of something that would happen in our houses on Friday? So bederech klal, when your wife makes challah and my wife makes challah, she makes 5, 6, 7, 8. She's not making 1 or 2. So the question is, if in that volume, if there is room to say, you know what, the rabbi is coming, I'll gift him 2. This is really lema'aseh. So
exactly, because that means if you're going to give me 2, you don't have any more of the shiur challah. Remember, 1 pack of the how much is 1 pack of flour?
I don't know, but I feel like we would have to see, because this is really nogea.
No, 100%. You're right. 100%.
Well, it seems to me Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef here is going to permit it. I mean, he's just bringing that as a question. He's saying that you're allowed to put it. My question really is before this, as I was reading this.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to run and get a pack.
Okay. So la pregunta that I have now is, if I'm understanding this correctly, because the way I'm reading it is as if you have to make 1 bread. And when it's talking about haluk, what does it mean haluk? Haluk as in a loaf, or a haluk of the actual bread? So I have to make this big bread. And that's what I'm getting a little stuck on. That's what I'm getting, I'm understanding.
Señores, ¿qué es lo que está pasando aquí un poco?
Está hablando del pastelero, échale bola.
No, estoy macleando ahorita una fina que no está tu.
Okay, 1 pack of flour is 5 pounds. Okay, 5 pounds. The pounds into kilos is around every pound,
0.46.
How much is it?
10% less than half a kilo. 460 grams approximately.
So 5 libras, ¿cuánto es en kilos entonces?
2.25 maybe.
Okay, very good. So 2.25. So we just said yesterday that the original amount for
Okay, so listen, my wife, Mechila, my wife is right next to me. The
Oh.
recipe calls for the full bag that you mentioned, and that gives you about 6 to 7 big halot. About 5. She says 5 big halot from that big bag that you just saw.
Okay. So 5 halot. So now if you're going to give me one, right?
Then she's not. If you take one, then she's not chayevet in Hafrashat Halla.
Exactly.
She is.
No, we just.
She is, because it's
2.25 divided by 5. How much
exactly.
is that? 2.25 kilo divided by 5 is 0.45. No, so if you take one, it's okay, Ron. If you give one away.
If I give one away, she's still mechuyevet in the Beracha. But if you take 2 away, according to some shitot, no Hafrashat Halla.
No Hafrashat Halla.
Wow.
Well,
Again,
No
sorry.
one away.
No Hafrashat Halla with a Beracha. Sorry. No Hafrashat Halla with a Beracha.
But now, let me ask you a question from this. Are we talking about, because the way that it reads, at least the way I've been following it reading, and I'm trying to divide how it understands it. When it says that it divides it, that you're going to be mechaleket, it seems to be, I could be reading it wrong, but it seems to be like you're making one big bread, and then you're cutting it. Because afterwards he says, but not like us who divide it into different halot, and therefore we're going to keep it. So it would be like you have to have one big bread that has the challah, and that's when you're going to say the beracha. And he goes, but lechatchila. He goes, but us, that we make little breads, and we all put it together, then it would be okay. But really, it would seem to be like, you're making just like to do lechatchila. Challah, you're making one big bread that has that amount.
Exactly. No? That's what's coming out. That means the lechatchila is one big bread that has that amount. But technically speaking, as long as I'm staying with all of them, then the reason why I'm not doing that is because how are you going to do it for Shabbat? You need lechem mishneh, obviously. So how do you do for lechem mishneh? So obviously, in order to do lechem mishneh, so then I'm going to have the, breaking it down, obviously. And that's what Ronnie was saying. So that means I need the 5 chalot in order to have 2 for the nighttime, 2 for the daytime. And technically I would need 6 because I need 2 for Sudah Shlishit. But so whatever. But I'm saying, something around those lines. So just as going back, just one more time for Halacha L'Maaseh. The Yalkut Yosef is bringing down the Minchat Yitzchak in the name of the Eretz Tzvi. The Minchat Yitzchak in the name of the Eretz Tzvi is saying, if you're going to come, again, according to what we brought down in the Shach and the Rashba, and that was, other than the Samag, but he said maybe the Samag was okay. If right now I am making it for myself, and after it's already a bread, I decide afterwards to come and giving it to you, that should be okay. Because when I did the Hafrashat Halla, I was doing it for myself. I did not do it al dat lechalek. I was doing it for me, myself, and I. For me. So no problem. However, though, what about if I was doing it in the batzek? So if in the batzek, I'm dividing the batzek itself, the dough. So I'm going to come to you, Ronnie, I'm giving you a little piece of dough. To Yitzchak and Yitzchak Amram, and I'm giving everyone little pieces of dough. According to everybody, I don't make a beracha. There's nothing what to talk about. Sorry, I did miss that. What?
No, sorry, I have a phone call. 1 second. So
okay,
continue.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so now, but the problem though is that, or now the machloket that's coming out is, that Minchat Yitzchak is bringing down, what happens if during the batzek, I had in mind to be mechaleket zeh after it's baked. Because again, one more time, if it's after baked, and when I was doing the batzek, I had it for me, everybody says you say a beracha. Okay? If it's that I'm dividing the batzek, everybody says you don't say a beracha. So when is the, that we're in questionable zone, where it's right now batzek, but I have in mind to divide it later on. So that's what you were telling me, Ronnie, about after I already baked those chalot, now I'm going to give it to you as a present. So according to the Eretz Tzvi, if at the time of the dough, I already had in mind to give it to you, I cannot make a beracha. That's the Eretz Tzvi. However, the Yalkut Yosef is going to argue on it. And that's what he says right here. So just like, if you want, just like over here, they make the chalot like the shiur, and then they send it to their family members every week. And they do it at the time of the batzek. So how do they make the beracha on Hafrashat Halla? But since at the time of the Gilgula batzek, it was already a dat lechalek, so yesh lazir al zeh, sheyafrishu chala b'lo beracha. So according to the Tzvi, you make it without a beracha. Hafrashat Halla without beracha. Next, says the Yalkut Yosef, ubemet lo kasha. It's not a question at all. Why? Share gam hashutafin b'shat gilgula batzek haya bedatam le'chalko acharafiyah. Even when you have two partners, during the time of Gilgula Batzek, they also wanted to divide it afterwards. We didn't tell them that they had to eat the bread together. But it's not like that. Which means the yesod is, as long as you're not dividing it when it's batzek, when it's the dough, even though you do want to divide it afterwards after it's baked, you are chayav in chala. With a beracha, obviously. And not like that, it's tzvi. Ve'od shemevuar lehedya b'miidi chala, right? B'shem ha'ravad, v'mitanim matziti nashim shenatnu lanachtom, women, plural, that you're giving it to a nachtom, mashma shimaita isha achat, it's mashma if it was one woman doing it, she's chayavet. Afal pi shedato lechalek, even though she wants to divide it between people. V'siem, and he finished the miidi, v'chen adverim nirim, v'chen katav agra. It's also Shitat HaGaon Mevidna, Shnot Eliyahu. So therefore, the Yalkut Yosef is arguing on this Eretz Sevi, and he's basically saying, whether in your case of Yitzchak Bemergi, that I'm going to tell whether whoever it is, I'm going to make you chalot, which means that I didn't even do it yet, but I'm going to make the chalot. Or your case, Ronnie, where it was even after I baked it, and now I want to give it to you as a present. In both cases, according to Yalkut Yosef, you make a beracha. Why? Because at the end of the day, I'm only giving it to you after baking. Okay? Fine. Now, ulam, however, though, says the Yalkut Yosef, lo echached, I'm not going to hide, ki betoso berachot katvu, because there is going to be a tosafot and berachot, and they wrote down, Rabbeinu Yechiel mesupak. That Rabbeinu Yechiel was mesupak in varmiyash chayav b'chala. If this varmishash was chayav b'chala, this was Ramishash, we just saw this yesterday.
This was the wraps. Those little thin. Yeah, the little. I had that question yesterday and I forgot to ask him. He mentioned there was a little thin bread. Remember he said that, and they didn't say amotzi because it wasn't surat apat. But it was a little thin piece of bread. Very thin.
So you're saying
wouldn't that be wraps? I had that. I wrote it down in my Yalkut Yosef to ask and I forgot last night.
Interesting. Maybe you're right. Not. It sounds like it.
¿Verdad?
Sounds like it. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, it's actually very. We would have to look into the wraps again to see what do they bring this case? Meaning, because again, maaseh ofed dak betavnit. Yeah, it does sound like wraps. Okay, so I guess this is it. But he says there that Rabbeinu Yechiel was misupak by this type of whether it's a wrap or whatever, it's the flatbread, that it's going to be chayav chala. משום דקיימלן שעושה עיסתו בצק כדי לחלקה פטורה מן החלה, תלה בה שיעורה, אבל זה דה זרם שיעור, והכנה מגבי ורמיש, פעמים מחלקן והם נשים שיעור חלה בדלה אחת. You don't have in the same pan or pot or whatever it is that you have, you don't have the שיעור of חלה, לכן היה מצליח לקח חלה בלא ברכה. ומשמע שאפילו המנהל לחלק לעצמו פטורה. So this is going against even what he mentioned at the beginning. At the beginning, he said, if it's for myself, according to everybody, for sure I would do a beracha. That there's nothing to talk about. The question is, am I giving it to other people? But if I'm doing it myself, and that's why we have the small little tiny chalot, right? Because, for example, even you, Ronnie, if your wife is making 5 chalot, every single one does not have shiur chala. Every single one is, let's say, 500 grams. So if every single one is 500 grams, it was actually 450, whatever it was, but more or less, right? You don't have shiur chala. Shiur chala minimum was 1.404 kilos. Or 1.5 kilos according to the old version. Because remember, I always still go according to the old version, which means that for Hafrashat Halla with Beracha, was 1.666. Then afterwards, he said that he found a smaller shiur, so it became 1.52, no? 1.520? 1.520, I think it was. Okay? But anyway, our 5-pound bags, the majority of the wives anyway are doing the full bag, so that has much more than that. It has that's even more than the chazonish, if I remember correctly. Right? But it has a minimum, I think, 2.3 kilos. So that's even chazonish, you have it. But you're not making one huge challah, you're making small little tiny chalot. So he's saying, according to this Tosafot, it's mashma that even for yourself, forget about giving it to your neighbor, to your sister-in-law, to your brother, to nothing. Even for yourself, you wouldn't be able to do with a beracha. So he says, V'ra'iti la'arav lechem chamudot. So I found in the Rav Lechem Chamudot, shekatav, שספקו של רבי יחיאל עם הסברה שכתב על לבוש והשח, דהיינו לחלקם לאחרים, נכונה היא עם לאו. But I actually found in the Lechem Chamudot that he brings down that the entire safek of Rabbi Yechiel was what is the svara of the levush and the shach. That if I'm dividing it to other people, is that correct or not? ומעדני יום טוב כתב, שאפילו נאמר שגם אם עושה לחלק לעצמו פטורה, because even if we're going to say to yourself it's patur, נאמר שגם אם עושה לחלק, היינו, we're going to say, כשמחלק העיסה על מנת שלא עבדה בפעם אחת, if you're not going to bake it at one time. But if you're doing it to bake it at one time, and that's what we all do, we don't divide it and I'm going to leave it for tonight, you understand, to start baking it. When we're dividing the chalot and making chalot, we're baking it all in the same second. We're not waiting, we're not leaving it over. So he says, אף על פי שהם בכל חלק כשיעור חייבים בחלה. שאם לא כן, אז if not, וכי דווקא כיכרות גדולות שבכל אחד מהם יש שיעור חלה חייב בחלה. He says what? Only huge loaves of breads, the ones that they give out at the chatunot, you know, for the chatan to cut. That's the only one that you're going to tell me that is going to be chayav and chala. Same as any other type. You bring me any type of bread that you get even in the bakery, right? The biggest bread that they have in the bakery that they're selling to the public, they'll never be able to, again, other than the big, huge ones that, you know, like, chatan or Shabbat chatan or things like that, you're not going to have a shiur chala. So then what? You're going to be patur. So he says, Ayin Sham, Batzlach Sham Amad al Dat Rabbeinu Yechiel ve'ela, that even Rabbeinu Yechiel is going to be modeh to the levush and the shach. De lo patrina min chala, that we don't exempt from chala, only if you're giving it to other people. But to yourself, you're always obligated. Why? Because you could combine them together with a sal. So this concept I explained, if you remember yesterday, let's say I have two different doughs, completely different doughs. This one I'm going to make rogalach, and this one I'm going to make whatever it is. Or let's not get into rogalach, because that might be a little, but I've got two different doughs. I could do what's called siruf alideh sal. Siruf means I put them in the same basket, and now they connect, which means that even though right now I'm going to separate them and I'm going to use them for each different batch, something else, but when I connect them together, they're connected and I can do a Hafrashat Halla with it. So he says, the fact that they both belong to me and I'm staying with it, I could be mitzaref otam afterwards with a sal. Mashen ken sufganim, but for example, sufganiyot, which is going to be patur from chala, it cannot be mitzaref afterwards. So then it doesn't help. Because, that's why, all these things. Vayine od lagaon, lagra, we're talking about the Gaon in Vilna, the Shnot Eliyahu, and the Agah, shemin divrei Tosot, she'ad kan lo nistapku Tosot elehecha denechleka yisa kodem gilgul habatzek. That's only, again, if you divided it before when there's still the gilgul of the batzek. Shlo badayin lecha chiyuv, there's no chiyuv at all. But after the gilgul of the batzek, according to everybody, you're going to be chayav, because it all became a batzek. Meaning before I put the flour and the water together, that's one thing. But afterwards, it's already for sure chayav. Teida, what's the proof? Ta'amninan chalot toda ulkike nazir. We're talking about chalot toda and the rekike nazir. Asan limkor b'shuk chayav, you're going to be chayav. Falo lo haya ela yisaron echad. They only had one isaron. Ve'asu mimena gimel chalot. And they made 3 chalot from this one isaron. So if you make 3 chalot from this one isaron, each one doesn't have the shiur of chala. So it was always a minhag, always. Everyone made smaller breads, and we always did Hafrashat Halla with the Beracha. So there's no problem. Right? בסידור דרך החיים, חגת וחל הלחם, באים מלמד להוריל, שוחס אליו רם תנינה, שלכאורה מדברי רבנו יחיאל בתוספות היה נראה שיש לפתור גם כשחל לעצמו, Shemem shiur mikom kom, he says, no, we don't go like that. So basically, we're not passing in that. So for sure, for yourself, there's no problem whatsoever. Right? הילקח, העיקר כדברי האחרונים ינהל בכוונה רבי יחיאל, שכן ראוי להשוותו לשאר הפוסקים, לכן אישה עושה יישא בראשה כשיעור חלה, ודעתו לחלקה לאחר אפייה לבני משפחתה, חייבת בחלה בברכה, דעת השולחן ערוך באחרונים. So he says, הלכה למעשה, a woman that comes and she's doing the chalot, as long as she's separating, she's dividing those chalot and she's partiendo, she's distributing them. Afterwards, no problem whatsoever. She does a beracha because she's dividing it after it's already a chala, after it's already baked, and therefore there's no problem. Okay? Fine. Lamed bet. Im ifrishu chala be'erev Shabbat. If they separated chala on erev Shabbat, the chala sheifrishu ota nafla letoch tavshil b'Shabbat. So this chala that you separated, it fell inside the tavshil on Shabbat. Mutar lechacham la'afer et haneder b'Shabbat. You're allowed to do a tarat nedarim on Shabbat. Davi kenedarim shemefrim utar b'zet tzorech Shabbat. So let's see, what are we talking about here? Afarat nedarim, you know what's going on exactly. So it says over here like this. Im ifrishu chala be'erev Shabbat. V'chala sheifrishu nafla letavshil b'Shabbat. So imagine, she separated the chala, and then that what she separated fell into a pot on Shabbat. Right? So it says, כן כתב בשו"ת שבות יעקב חלק ג' מתחילה חשב לאסור התבשיל על פי מדעית בהגה, יש חולקים וסילה דאוסרת התערובת עד 101, אם הוא במינה. Which means, if you right now have this bread that falls into a tarovet, it's not batel b'shishim. You need 101. Because, you know, truma and things like that, you need 101. It's not enough shishim. Shishim is with isurim, right? But to do with truma, it's b-101. Okay? So he says the same thing. It should be prohibited at 101. Imu b'mina, if it's in the same species. However, though, if it's shelo b'mina, min b'she'eno mino, then it's going to be b'shishim. So here, it depends what type of a pot it fell into. Obviously, if it fell into a tafshil, it's probably not b'mina, so it's going to be batel b'shishim. Now he says, v'im chazra v'nitarva be'isa, if right now you came and you mixed it again be'isa, with the dough, ve'en kufa lef lebatla, and you don't have 101 to be mevatel et ze, im lo achal et ha'isa, if you didn't eat the isa, yisha lechacham alea, tu atarat nedarim, v'yatil lo haneder. Now this comes from the Tshuvot Maimoniyot. Okay? Now, what exactly are we doing? We're trying to do a tarat nedarim, that this neder that you did, that this is chala, is now not chala anymore. That's what we're trying to say, with what I think.
So as long as we have more dough, that we can separate the new chala.
Hold on one second. As long as we don't have what?
As long as we have more chala to separate it.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. You still need more chala to separate afterwards, but you're going to have to separate chala, but we're trying to permit this what just fell into your pot. Okay? So it says here, however, though the taz is posek, there's no heter whatsoever. And also, Lashon Rama is also going to be mashma tzat, that if it's going to be nitarva chala b'sheno mino, you need shishim, lo mahani latir neder. It doesn't help atarat nedarim. However, though, kol divrei taz ere muchrachim, but we don't go like the taz, because it's not muchrach, just like the shach argued on him in the kudot hakesef, and also the Tshuvat Bet Yaakov is sigal ataz b'zeh, v'chdayu gaot b'miniyot, and the achronim to v'somech on them and isur d'rabbanan.
But this is the first time that we see the reference of betor neder, that this Hafrashat Halla is betor neder. That was something that was clear to the rabbi from the beginning. I've never learned this, so it's brand new to me. I mean, I thought the Torah tells us, you know, the separate challah for the kohen, teruma, whatever. Where did neder come in here?
I think it's the entire concept of Hafrashat Halla, because if you're going to tell me that nowadays it's Hafrashat Halla is not Doraita, and here he's saying, he's calling it as Elno afilu ikar min haTorah ke chala bizman hazeh, so then you're only doing it like a mitzvah, right? When you do a mitzvah 3 times, you could do a tarat nedarim and you get out of it, no? So that's, again, this is Laniya Dati, right? I've never learned chala biyun, but this is what's coming out. The truth is here also, it sounds like he's going to speak about this. Lafer neder ishto. So maybe here he is going to go into it a little bit more, but that's just a pashtut. When I'm reading it on the outside, that's what I'm just understanding.
Okay.
Right. Can't you say that it's not that it's a neder, it's just that it's a designation. So once you designate it, so
it becomes
like
a neder.
So it's like, that's what I'm saying. So it's not that like I'm saying, when I take it out, I go, I'm making a neder. It's just that it's like if I do a hekdesh. Nowadays, there is no hekdesh, there is no nothing. Yeah. But nowadays, if I did something hekdesh, I have to leave it there. You know, if I say this to the mikdash. That's it. I can't go, no, I was joking. I didn't mean that. No, that's it. I already made the declaration. So it catches on.
100%. Especially for the women that they say, Harezo Chala. You understand that? Especially if they're actually going to say, this is Chala, even though we said you don't need to say it, but some people do say it. So for sure, it's even more that like of a designate of a, of a neder that you're making this into it. So we're doing Atara Nedarim, and then you get out of the problem. So he says, especially if you're going to have the majority eter, that even the taz is going to be mekel, even if it's going to be min sheno mino. Therefore, if it happens on Shabbat, because since you're permitted to do hatarat nedarim on Shabbat, if it's litzorech Shabbat. So for example, if you're going to come to me and I want to do hatarat nedarim on Shabbat, I'm going to tell you, sorry, there's no hatarat nedarim on Shabbat. Say, yeah, but I made a neder, I'm not going to eat meat. And lichot Shabbat Kodesh, I want to eat meat. Or I'm not going to eat bread. Or I'm not going to have wine. I'm not going to have a kiddush. So then I would be able to do hatarat nedarim because it's litzorech Shabbat. So then, it's like דבר שיש לו מתירים, ואין לו תקנה בביטול בשישים, רק על ידי התרת חכם. לאכול בצד זה, וליתן עיניו במה שנשאר, לפתור את הטבל למה שנתערב. And that's what Yitzchak Amram was trying to say before. That means, I'm not just doing hatarat nedarim, because I'm doing hatarat nedarim, that this becomes permitted. But I still have to have in mind that somewhere else is becoming that chala. Right? And that's what you're doing. That's what it means here. That meaning on this side, and I'm putting my eyes, whatever is left over, to be poter the tevel mashenitarev. Because remember, now I have a technical problem. I have chalot over there, but now I have a pot of alafina, or I don't know what. Now there was batzek that fell into the alafina. I don't know where it is. Right? It was, alafina, you see everything. It was a cholent. And it's not recognizable what anything is over there. It's all a big, cholent over there, right? An ensalada in the cholent. So I have no idea what's going on. I don't know where the bread is. I'll only find out when I take the bite. Yeah? So now what's going to happen? So therefore, here I'm doing the tarat nedarim on this piece of bread, on this challah, I'm going to put the challah on another piece later on, right? On something else. So but I'm going to have to do a tarat nedarim. So that's what you're doing.
Right. So it's not like what Yitzchak said. That's what I was thinking. It's more like, it's not that I don't have dough. I don't need to have dough. I have a piece of bread. I left and I said, you know what? I'm going to take that piece of bread and that's going to be challah.
No, 100%, because it does help. If a person forgot to do a Hafrashat Halla, you could do it on the challah itself.
On the challah, exactly. So it's not.
No, but just with Yitzchak was talking about that if I realize that beforehand and it's still dough or whatever it is, I could take it off from the dough, or if it's already bread, so then obviously I would do it on bread. You would just do it on the actual bread in itself. וצריך לשלם מה שיותר כדי שיהיה שיריים ניכרים. But you obviously have to leave something over it so it's ניכר. יש להתיר אפילו שלא במינו, and even if it's not going to be the same species, it's going to be permitted. Okay? Okay, let's try to finish this with this one then. חלה שנתערבה בעיסה אם הבעל יכול להיכנס לשלושה לפר נדר אשתו. So what happens if you have a challah that got mixed up with Isa, right, with the dough? Can you now have that the husband is going to get 3 people together in order to do a farat nedarim? Okay? I don't know why he calls it farat nedarim. It should be hatarat nedarim, but okay. No? It was usually a farat nedarim we usually use on the husband doing it on his own, meaning his own farat nedarim. Hatarat nedarim is usually for the chacham. But okay, fine. Vayim b'shut ar tzvi. So the shut ar tzvi comes and he says like this. שדן באישה שהפרישה חלה, ואחר כך הוא צריכה לשאול עליה מפני התערובת. So she separated חלה, and then she has to ask because it got mixed up. ועשתה את בעלה לשליח להטיל לה בפני 3. So she makes the husband the shaliach in order to do a tarat nadarim in front of 3 people. אי בעניין דווקא שיהיו מחונפים, do you need that they are gathered together, או די שתיתן לו רשות להחניף, or is it enough that she's getting, right? Or is it enough that she's getting, what does it say here? Just permission to get them together. You don't need it at all. So let's see what it says here. How do we know that you have to put 3 people together to do a tarat nedarim on a neder of the wife? It's based upon a Gemara nedarim chet amud aleph. Nechleku b'tama da'imimta. There's a machloket. What's the reason? Haran katav l'shitat Rambam. The Ran brings down the name of the Rambam. Normally, you don't take a shaliach to do atarat nedarim. But Baal Shane, but the husband is different because ishto kigufo. Vekevan de mechvarta de minta, hu shi'eh anoder atzmo lifnei hametirim. So since it's more proper that the one that made the neder is in front of the matirim, so lo ikilu gam legabe bala lachlif lechatchila. So we didn't permit it lechatchila. Okay? Ve'atosfot uva divrei beran sham, katu lachlif lechatchila, you could do it lechatchila. Why? The ikatarte legriuta, the two things which are bad. Number one, the nidrei ishto kashin etzlo, that it's bad, the neder of his wife. Ve'od, the tarach chashinan, shema yosif midato becharatata, v'yeshane dibura. Lomar de ladat ken lo nadra. Maybe he himself is going to add on his wife's words and say, Mama, she mitcharetet, and she has remorse. Because remember, when you do atarat nedarim, that's the difference between hafarat nedarim and atarat nedarim. Hafarat nedarim, the husband could renounce it, even if she doesn't regret it. By hatarat nedarim, you have to be matirit, you have to find a petach, you have to find charata. So here, we're going to suspect, maybe he's going to come and he's going to say, yeah, no, she feels so bad. He's going to add on it and change it. והראש בפסקה הביא בשם הרב אליעזר ממץ, ליראים, וגמרא מיידי בבעל שרצה להטיל נדר אשתו בפני ג' שלא מידתה, that he was doing it without her knowledge. ובזה מפלגינן, that's what we have a מחלוקת. תאים מקרפים, as if you're going to get them all together, ואין צריך לפרסם הדבר אין מקפדת. So you don't have to be מפרסם, so then she's not מקפדת. אבל לכנוף לכתחילה, that there is a פרסום, so then she's embarrassed. ודאי דהכי לא נתחרתה, and then she's not going to be מתחרטת. Okay. ולשיטת הרעם, פשוט במידתה יכול להטיל בכל עניין. So it's much what you could be matir in any case, even להחניף לכתחילה, even to bring them together לכתחילה. However, though in that Rambam משמע, שאפילו עשה אישה לבעלה שליח, even if she made him the שליח, להטיל נדרה בסתם, right? אינו יכול לקבל שלושה שתירו לה. It doesn't help to get three people to be matir לה. מה אם הבח שכתב כן בדת הרמב"ם, ומרן בשולחן ערוך יודע אביד לשון רמב"ם, but he took away the words of the Re'im. Okay? And even the Ramah did not bring down that Rosh v'Shem Re'im, שמינתה that you could do it בפני גימל בכל עניין, אף להחניף לכתחילה. ופשוט צריך לומר משום בעניין זה, בעניין זה, גם דת התוספות אל הרמב"ם. So it comes out of the Tosfot and the Rambam together. ולכן שפיר, and therefore it's good, סתתם הלכה, כלרמב"ם והתוספות. תאסור לבעל להחניף לכתחילה. אפילו בעשתה האישה את בעל השליח להתאים, אז even if she made him a shliach, doesn't help. וסברת הרעים is against the majority of the poskim. ולפי זה בנידון דידן, בעינן שהבעל יטיל את הנדר רק לפני שלושה, שיהיו כבר מכונסים. Which means that only he could do, if he finds three people that are already there, he could do atarat nedarim. But I cannot say, hey, you over here, come 1 minute. You over there, come on, you, I was machnif lechatchila. No, that you can't do. If there are already three people, I could do it. But I cannot gather them together to do it. Okay? Ulam, however, though, אם נתבונן בשיטת התוספות נמצא, כבנידון דידן רשאי הבעל להפר נדר, גם כשהוא מכניס לכתחילה את השלושה, שישבו להפר את הפרשת חלה. He says, why? He says, שלכל טעם שהצליחו שהבעל יחפש שלושה מכונסים, why are we looking for the husband to find three people that are already together? כדי שיטרח, in order that he should toil on it. ובינתיים יחשוב אם לבטל את הנדר, then in the meantime, he's going to think, should I be mevatel the neder or not be mevatel the neder? אבל בנידון דידן, but in our case, אין צורך לזה שהבעל יהיה מתון קודם שיפר נדר. He doesn't have to do it. הוא גם לטובתו שיוכל לאכול, it's also for his own good. So he could eat from the bread. הוא לא יאכל מהלחם בלי שיתיר. That means he's also not going to eat. So therefore, דמי לנדרי עצמו שלא הצליחו שלושה מכתבים. So it's like his whole neder as well. Which means even though it was his wife that did the neder because she's doing the Hafrashat Halla, it's considered his own neder. So since it's considered his own neder, I don't need this chumrah of finding three people already fixed. I could actually bring three people to myself because it's my own neder. ומשום הכי יש לומר, ואין צריך שיפר הנדר לפני שלושה מכונסים, אלא יכול לכנס שלושה ולהפר בפניהם, אין שם. ובר מן דין, even without this, יש לחקור בעיקר הפרשת חלה על ידי אישה נשואה. What about a woman that she's married? אם היא מותרת בעלים, אם היא מותרת בעלים שזכתה במצווה זו, do we say that it's מותרת בעלים, that she's זוכה in this, או נאמר כפשוטו, דכיוון דייסה היא של בעלה, or maybe because since it belongs to the husband, אין הפרשתה אלא מתור השליחות, so it's only שליחות, and she's doing the שליחות of her husband. Meaning, is it her own that it belongs to her because she's the one that's doing it? Or no, she's a shliach of the husband. It belongs to the husband. So that means everything was the husband. Except for it was never hers to do Hafarat Nedarim to begin with. She's the shliach of the husband. So therefore, nafkamina, be'avra v'tarma b'shabbat yom tov. If she transgressed and she did Hafrashat Halla on Shabbat and Yom Tov, the miturat shlichut, nami we say also, en shliach l'dvar avera. Right? However, though, if you're going to say that it's not shlichut and it's on her own, it does help. So it says, if the woman herself is going to do the tarat nedarim, so then she's a shaliach. And therefore, you would have to find 3 people that are already mekunasim. And you can't get 3 different people. Right? But if it's the husband that's doing it, then it's he himself doing it for his own neder. He himself doing another shliach. אבל בעל התרומה, אף ניתן לידי אחר, ודאי עדיף תפי. Right? שיהו אשר ועריך עלי וכו', but then it's כולי עלמא. So basically, it's mashma that what he was trying to argue on Shitat, not argue on Tosafot, he's just trying to explain that it's opposite. That even the Chatchila, you could do it. And I think that's what he's going to say here again. What was it again? No, he doesn't speak about it. But basically, it's sounding that he's coming and saying halacha l'maseh that you're allowed to do it even with 3 people which are mekunasim, and you don't have to do it. That you have to. You could do it even with grabbing people together, and you don't have to find 3 people which are mekunasim, but it's he himself that is doing it. Or because of what we mentioned before over here, that he's allowed to do a lechatchila, and because of the tircha, because it also has to do with him. So miman hashach, either that it's his and she's a shliach, and then it's his own neder, so he's allowed to do it, or forget about that yisod. Really, be'emet, it's hers. Everything is ever hers and everything. But it's nogea to him as well. So when he's doing a Hafarat Nedarim, it's also for him as well. And therefore, he could even look for the people and he doesn't have to find them gathered together.
Okay, the Halla is the Rabbanan, no?